welcome back to the Scenic Route Astrology. Makayla here. I'm going to talk to you about a very deep topic, and I feel like it's very important because of the transitions that we are entering into astrologically. We are going to be having a nodal shift where the lunar nodes that are currently in Gemini and Sagittarius switch into the Taurus and Scorpio axis. And this will be an 18-month transit and will affect us all very, very deeply in the areas of Scorpio and Taurus in our charts, in our overall life, and as a collective in humanity. Scorpio energy is very intense, and Taurus energy has to do with what our safety and security is. So I suspect that a lot of us will be going through some difficult times where we have challenges around these dynamics, really intense, deeply emotional challenges where we need to learn the archetypes of Scorpio and Taurus deeply so that we can navigate through this transitional energy that we're entering, okay? And so I'm going to make this a two-part series, okay? The first part, today's video, is going to be about the 8th house, Scorpio dynamic, Mars and Pluto. And the reason why I'm incorporating these together is because Scorpio is one of the archetypes that rules it is the archetype that rules the 8th house in the Anima Mundi and the original zodiac wheel. And so wherever we have the 8th house in our chart, no matter what sign is on the cusp of that house, whether it be Gemini or Aries, Sagittarius, whatever, it will always have a Scorpio undertone because the natural placement of that 8th house is Scorpio. So I'm going to talk to you about having an 8th house experience, which we all will, okay? And to set us up into this video, I want to talk about a predictive technique that I use called annual perfections. And what this technique does is you can hone in on a house of the year that you're experiencing, okay? So when you're 31 years old, for instance, you will be having an 8th house year. When you turn 32, you'll have a 9th house year, 33, 10th house year, and so forth, okay? And so what we can do with annual perfections is figure out what age you are and then what type of year and those experiences are going to be highlighted for that whole entire year, because it will be heavily influenced by those house dynamics. I can tell you from my personal experience, just learning astrology a couple of years ago, it's very accurate. Every single year that I experienced was so on point with those dynamics of that house. So I'm going to do my best to explain the 8th house dynamics and what Scorpio means, what Pluto means, what Mars means, and how these things can show up for you in your life, even if you're not having an 8th house year. Again, this is important because we are entering a time of the nodes going into the Scorpio-Taurus axis. So we're going to really want to know the meaning behind these archetypes from every different angle that we can. When are you going to have an 8th house year? That's a good question to start with. When you are 7 years old, 19, 31, 43, 55, 67, 79, and 91. So if you can think back at the type of years that you had at all of those ages, you'll have an understanding of what kind of dynamics will come up for you when you're at these ages again. All right. And it's good to have like a mental note or a mindset. I really like to do annual perfections in my predictive work with clients, forecasting horoscopes for a natal chart specific client, or giving a year ahead report, because this really does help flavor all the dynamics and the situations that you're going to be heading into when you go into this year. So first, let's talk about the Scorpio archetype. And Scorpio is within all of our natal charts somewhere in a house. Sometimes we progress into this sign over time. Sometimes we have a personal planet like Mercury and Mars or Venus. Sometimes some of us have the moon there. And even if you don't have any placements in Scorpio, in the Scorpio house in your chart, it will come out in certain areas, especially with transits. When a planet is transiting through that house, you'll start to feel those dynamics more. And we're in Scorpio season right now, November 17th, 2021. So this is a perfect time to investigate the dynamics around this type of energy, okay? So Scorpio energy is extremely powerful and intense. It is probably one of the most intense signs of the zodiac, and it has to do with regeneration, okay? It has to do with a death and renewal process whenever we experience this dynamic. The Scorpio energy can be uprooting. It can be, alchemical changes emotionally within us. It can be exterior changes outside of us. But the energy also has to deeply go with attachments in our life. It's where we merge with somebody else and connect and form a union on a deep emotional level. There can be power dynamics that show up with this archetype. Sex is a huge part of the Scorpio energy, the sexual union between two people, sexual preference, even people having sex changes might be a Scorpio transit or a Scorpio energy. Okay, these are deeply intoxicating type of dynamics around this archetype. It's psychic. It has to do with esoteric beliefs, right? Really passionate conversations, really passionate feelings and emotions and drives. It also is very private and secretive. The Scorpio archetype will be very careful about who they trust and what they trust with these dynamics, okay? It can be very severing, even. Like if you've ever been in a relationship with somebody who is a Scorpio, for instance, they could just switch their energy at one point and it's done. It's done. It never goes back the same because it's like a severance. That's it. It will go to hell and back with you. But when it also is done with an energy, it's completely, you can't go back. You can't go back. And that's the kind of energy around this, right? It's so transformational that it's not the same again when it's done. Once the energy has brought you through what you need to go through. And so around these ages, we will have a year of this where we are challenged and tested around so many dynamics in our life. But we're usually being asked to look deeply within at the power dynamics in our life and the psychological dynamics, the emotional dynamics, okay? What really is still under the surface that needs to be brought up to the to the light or healed so that you can transform and rise again. Okay, I think that there's a beautiful way to look at this eighth house. A lot of astrologers have a hard time talking about it because it is so highly complicated, these kind of dynamics. And I've come to think that unless you deeply go within what this energy is asking you to go through, then it always would be hard to explain this type of energy, okay? Because you actually have to live it and experience it, and it's guaranteed that we all will at some point in our life. And that's not to like fear mongle you and, just establish some type of negative feeling or anything like that. This is just a natural process of life, okay? With any attachment, which Scorpio represents attachments, where we're united with somebody or something, there is guaranteed loss, okay? There's guaranteed loss at the end. And that can be a tough pill to swallow for a little bit, but when we understand the bigger energy and dynamics that nobody ever truly leaves us, and that just because like a relationship ends doesn't mean that they're not around still or they're not there. Do you know, like they might not physically be there anymore, but that relationship gave you wisdom, right? It gave you love, it gave you life, and it gave you some tools that you didn't have before you got into that. It served a purpose for your own regeneration on your own journey, your own emotional journey and scale. Okay. This can also show up when we lose a parent or we lose a family member. Okay. There's a deep, deep, deep emotional rooting that just, it creates pain, right? Because Scorpio can probe. It can probe you as an energy because it's investigating. It's subconsciously asking you to keep diving and looking within. I really like to reference Alice in Wonderland with the Scorpio dynamic when she falls into the rabbit hole and she's just falling forever, right? It feels like she's falling forever because with Scorpio, we don't always have an end result until we get out of that Scorpio energy. It's more of an energy that's asking us to just dig in deeper and keep asking further questions. So when you're having an 8th house year, or you're having a scorpionic transit, you know, it is a time to investigate, to become the private detective of your own life, to go to the depth of this energy, right? To go into the absolute inner core of everything that is about you. And it's intense. Like, this is just, the word to use, I feel, is just intense energy. And it can be, some people have more intensity than in their chart than others. So some people are more willing to go into this energy than other people are. And there's no right or wrong answer, you know, but I do have to say that the more that you resist this type of transformation, the harder it is to go through. And sometimes we have to let our own inner guidance and the universe work its magic so that we can actually live in a deep intimacy with life and create our own Phoenix rising story and create our own power. Okay. When I was 7 years old, my house caught on fire. When I was 19 years old, my house caught on fire. Okay. Now I'm 31. I'm trying to not let my house catch on fire, okay? But I already had a very 8th house dynamic right when I entered my 8th house year. My fiance and I had broken up, and it's that exact, like it can be that exact, literally within that month of my birthday, right? When I entered that 8th house year. And that was the unfolding, that was the death process that I had to go through to transform my own self. And I can tell you that this is the most amazing energy I've ever experienced, because you come out completely transformed, completely a new human being with so much more wisdom, so much more enlightenment than you'd ever imagine. So it's kind of like get excited about these kind of transits, get excited about these disconnections that you might get, like the transference of energy, the eradication of things in your life coming apart, right? Power dynamic struggles, you know, asking yourself, where is my life not equal anymore? Where is the exchange of energy not equal anymore, where I need to transmute it and empower myself even deeper on a core level? These are the type of dynamics that will come up with an 8th house year, Scorpio, Mars, or Pluto in the chart. I deeply believe, I mean, these dynamics are not boring. Okay. If you're looking for some intensity and flavor in your life, definitely look forward to Scorpio season, to Scorpio transits, when your planet progresses into Scorpio, or you're having an 8th house year, anything like that, because this is a process, a total process that I believe brings you just this psychological investigation within yourself, and it helps with the creation of your soul, right? It helps with your soul's journey and path and evolution. Okay, so there's a lot of things to, you know, to look at with this type of energy. I do want to say too that this energy is really, really deeply connected to sex and sexuality, which is, you know, it's a part of life. It is what creates life, right? So as a society, I think we need to stop shaming sex and sexuality. We need to start being more open to it and more open to what other people choose to do within their body and their relationships and things like that. Okay, as long as it's not hurting anybody and malicious behavior, then allow people to be open and free free within themselves. Okay. We've shamed sex for centuries, but I do think when the nodes switch into the Taurus and Scorpio, we're going to see a lot of these things come up. We're going to see a lot of people starting to step in to their own sexuality and being more free with it and having better conversations, more healthier conversations about it. And I hope that this helps couples overall create stronger unions, okay? Because they're able to be more open with each other. There's a freedom within this, and which is so important because we're moving into this Aquarian age. We still have 150 years technically until our planet is in the Aquarius age, but we're already starting to feel these effects now, okay? Because that's such a huge shift for the world that because it's so slow and so intense, I think it's 2000 years then we'll be in the Aquarian age, that we only 150 years away, we're feeling the effects now. And you can see it. You can see it in society, people wanting to liberate, people being more authentic, more true to themselves, and navigating towards that, right? So this is why we're going through this transformational energy, this Scorpio stuff, right? The nodal switch is going to bring that up. With the South Node in Scorpio, it's actually going to dig up past lifetimes and tons and tons and tons of history and karma around it. The South Node is where we store all of our past lifetime karma. I can actually feel the energy when I'm calling upon it right now, and it's heavy. It's heavy depth of water. And this is all going to be in the surface. It's going to be brought to life. And we're going to have to funnel it through the North Node in Taurus, which has to rule our values, right? Like, what do we find of safety, security? What do we consider to be of a resource for us, right? How does this affect us in the body? How do we feel in the body? How are we treating ourselves with our bodies, right? All these dynamics is very intense. Okay, so a couple of things to know about an 8th house year, especially, or an 8th house transit, any planet in the 8th house, if you will. And then, some Scorpio dynamics. Again, I'd always have to look at the specific natal chart to really hone in, but this can help you start to dive and dig into certain themes that can show up in your chart with the Scorpio placements, the Scorpio rulers, which is Mars and Pluto, in 8th house years. Okay, so there's a dynamic of the 8th house about sharing resources and merging with resources. A lot of astrologers, we associate that with finances and with debt owed. This can be like house, mortgages or whatever, car loans or whatever, and joint credit cards, things like that. But on a deeper scale to look at it, it is an emotional exchange or an investment, okay? And it asks you to look at if that is equal or not. And you can see this play out in every aspect of our life, okay? Say you offer a service and you charge for that service. The price that you put on that service is of what you think is of value for your exchange and time. Okay, is this monetary cost equal to what the time is that I'm putting into it? Okay, is it of value to me? And those kind of dynamics will come up, and it doesn't just have to do about money. You can just think about it just as the exchange. Am I willing to offer myself and my gifts, without worrying about, that it's going to make me feel resentful in some type of way because I feel like I'm not getting reciprocated back that same energy. Okay, this exchange is really deeply rooted in the Scorpio archetype. And when it feels like the exchange isn't equal anymore, it will change it. It will try to change it. And it's not easy. Time, energy, money are huge. This can also be when we offer support to somebody, and do we feel that we're respected back? Again, this is another layer of the energy exchange that has to do with the Scorpio dynamic and the depth of these waters, okay? This is also where you might feel like you have an obligation that you either want to sever or not. You know, this is a type of year when you're having an 8th house year where you take the garbage out, you know, like literally metaphorically take the garbage out of your life. Okay, you clean up your debt, you clean up some assets that you don't want anymore, and you form new ones. You form new business partnerships, you form new friendships. You know, you might let go of some and might bring some more new ones in. You know, this can be a removal of emotions, goods, you know, like the clutter in your life, even, you know, removing a bad habit in your life that doesn't serve you anymore, like smoking. You know, there's process of excavating, excavating the soul, if you will. And it's interesting that this 8th house happens after you finish the houses of 1 through 6, which is always about, you know, the self-development, the self-growth. And then, you know, you reach the 7th house where you form partnerships, right? But then it's tested in your 8th house year. Those foundations that you built for yourself and with others, the unions that you've created are then tested. And will they live the test of time? Will they adhere to the Scorpio value, right? Will they survive under these really intense, deep transitional times in our life? You also want to pay attention to Mars when you're looking at Scorpio, because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. Pluto was discovered in 1930. So the ancient astrologers didn't know Pluto existed yet, right? They didn't know it was out there. So the traditional rulership that the ancient astrologers used with Scorpio was Mars. And Mars has a magician power, okay, because it rules our will and our desire, and our motivation, if you will. It rules over taking action, right, and putting things into motion. A lot of people, you know, I think associate Mars with this kind of angry energy because its other cold ruler is Aries, and Aries can be a little hot tempered as well, but so can Scorpio energy, but on a boiling water type of way, where Aries is like a spark of fire, a spark of light, and it can go to a wildfire really quick, right? But with Mars, it's using the power of the soul, okay? And so the intention is always, always very important with the Mars, when working with Mars at a chart, studying Mars, studying the transit of Mars, studying any aspects that happen to Mars natally or transit. And especially when Mars is in Scorpio, like it is right now. So it has to do with, you know, it can make us a crisis in our life as well, but within that crisis is an opportunity for renewal or strengthening ourselves, okay? So it can enter dangerous areas with Mars because it can be very bold, if you will, brave. It's like the warrior type of feeling. If you think of the planets as actors in our chart, you know, Mars can be that warrior fighter type of energy. But it has tremendous healing powers as well, depending on how somebody chooses to use it, especially when they're having an 8th house year. Okay, instead of picking fights with somebody because you're angry, you might go and take up hitting a punching bag and learning how to box in a healthy way instead, at like a boxing gym, or channeling Muay Thai, learning Muay Thai, or even just doing meditation. Mars energy doesn't have to be so physical, like in your face. It can also be like a softer aspect, like dancing, for instance. You know, a dancer might have a strong Mars, perhaps in Libra, for instance. There is this unyielding effect though with Mars. And why I want to incorporate this into this whole entire video is because these dynamics can also show up in an 8th house year or an 8th house transit, planets in the 8th house, okay? And, you know, you can use these martial energies, this urge to express yourself or to move your body or to take action, especially when something is being stimulated emotionally within us. You can use this for other outlets like sex. Become an erotic lover, you know, um, go to an axe throwing bar with your friends and have some fun doing that. Use it towards sexual magic. That is super powerful to do. You know, you can take this Martian energy and put it into a process of renewal. The same thing with an 8th house year, with the Scorpio archetype. It's always about this renewal. It doesn't die and then nothing gets reborn, or energy doesn't flow back in again. It's a conscious cycle. It's always evolving. Okay. So just like the seasons change, just like the sun always comes up and comes and, you know, and down every day, and all these, we can study all these kind of changing effects that happen in life, just like the butterfly, the caterpillar turns into the butterfly. Scorpio also rules in the modern rulership Pluto, which is what I heavily work with in evolutionary astrology. Okay, this is where the soul is going to go to the absolute depths of its transformation. And it will always return to this process. It will always recycle over. Pluto can represent the collective shadow of everybody that's experiencing it, which is really important because we're going into the United States Pluto return next year. So next year, towards the end of the next year, the United States is going to have what I'm going to call like an 8th house year. Okay, it's not going to be the 8th house year for it, but it's going to feel like these dynamics that we're talking about. And it's going to take on all of this energy as Pluto shifts from Capricorn into Aquarius. This transit happens only every 246, 47 years because Pluto moves so slow. In our lifetime, we will never experience a Pluto return. We will experience a Pluto square, but we will never experience the actual return unless some magical, crazy platonic science comes out and we are all of a sudden able to live that long, which I'm happy not doing so. So it's relentless. Pluto energy does not care. Okay. It does not know good or bad. There is no thing as good or bad anyway. It's a potent force. It's a psychoanalyst. It's radical change. It can be misuse of power or coming into great, extraordinary depths of power all of a sudden. Whose hands is it in, right? That matters. Intention always matters, right? It can be envy, it can be endings, it can be sex, it can be, you know, the just dark drives within us, the subconscious layers within our psyche that we didn't even know was there, and then all of a sudden it comes up, and we're like, "What is that? Oh my gosh, I need to heal that." It can be obsessions. You can be completely obsessed with something when you're having a Pluto transit or Pluto is ignited in your chart for some reason, okay? It also has to do with taboo, okay? The taboo stuff in our life and in society, you know, but one thing about taboo is it's only taboo until it's not anymore, right? So like same-sex marriage was like taboo for way too long, and then now it's not. So those are the things that Pluto wants you to transform. It wants you to look at these things like that and transform it, transmute the energy, bring an intense ending to what no longer serves you so that you can move out the garbage and take in the new, take in the good energy, the light, okay? It's really intense. It's jealousy, it's intolerance, it's the underworld. It can be violence sometimes, you know, it can just be envy. It just can be survival instincts at some points, right? It can be a volcanic, it could be a volcanic disruption, you know. And Jeffrey Wolfgreen in his books, who father of evolutionary astrologer, right? He says it's either a cataclysmic change or a gradual change, okay? Pluto can be both. Pluto can just hit us erratically one day, shift something, and it never goes back the same, or it can be a slow process as well. I guarantee you we're going to go through both of those in our lifetimes more than once, okay? But that is, again, that is the process of life, and that is what Scorpio archetype represents. This process of life that you can die and be reborn. Metaphorically, you can die and be reborn. But hey, sometimes people literally die physically, and they're brought back and they have these experiences and they're changed. Their life is forever changed because they went through some kind of crazy process like that. Okay, this isn't to be frightening or you should be scared about it. You should actually be excited about this type of energy because you upgrade yourself when you go through stuff like this. You energetically shift and upgrade, and your vibration gets higher and higher every single time. Dive into this. Dive into the deep waters of Scorpio. Don't fear it. Make friends with Pluto. Pluto, I am here. Show me my ugly shit because I want it gone. It's about letting go of the old and what doesn't serve you anymore. We study generations of Pluto as well because Pluto moves so slow that groups of people will be born into a certain Pluto sign. Okay. And the running joke in astrology is that the Pluto and Scorpio generation, which is mine, I'm very proud of it, is it was only in Scorpio for 12 years because that is all that humanity could handle. And it's true, because if we've looked at what Scorpio represents and eighth house represents what Mars can bring, okay, we can start to think about the dynamics that can show up, right? So give us 12 years of people born with Pluto and Scorpio, which is this intoxicating, intense, powerful, driving force within the chart, right? Put out 12 years of people born with that. Now we're coming into our power. Now we're growing into our 30s. We're taking leadership roles. We're running our own businesses. We're coming into power. Some of us are going into politics. You're going to see a major change, a Scorpio change, an eighth house change in society. Given now we're going into the United States having their Pluto return next year, you're going to see this regeneration process. And my generation, I think, is going to kickstart that wholeheartedly. We're not afraid. The Pluto and Scorpio generation, which is from 1984 to 1995, if you were born between those years, you will have Pluto in Scorpio. We're going to change the world in a very scorpionic way. And there's nothing really that phases this generation, okay? Because there's nothing taboo for us. There's nothing that we're not willing to look at to some point and degree. You know what I mean? If we want to talk about all the fucked up, excuse my language, shit that's going on in the world, you know, we're going to unveil it. We're going to bring it to the surface. We're going to be like, this isn't okay anymore. Okay. Sex trafficking isn't okay anymore. You know, we can't have racism in police departments anymore. We can't segregate people for their sex preference or their race or whatever anymore, right? That doesn't work with us. It's the crumbling of the structures that are coming down. Political leaders who shouldn't be in their power, who are abusing their forces, who are hiding things from us, who are starting world wars for no fucking reason. It's all coming down. And you can't sugarcoat it with this generation. We're raw. We're really raw. And I do invite you to just invite that archetype into your life more and embody it and take it for what it is, because it is deeply, deeply powerful. We will be the phoenix rising. And everyone, no matter if you were born in this generation or not, you still have Scorpio. You still have Scorpio somewhere in your chart. It's still showing up for you somewhere. You can still tap in and tune into these energies. Guarantee you the people in Scorpio with the Scorpio sun or the Scorpio moon or the Scorpio rising will really intensely resonate with this empowerment. They'll feel it, you know? So it's about tapping in and tuning into these energies sometimes. Some of it's more prominent for others, but the Scorpio generation, 1984 to 1995, definitely empowers it. Definitely feels it. It's rooted within their soul. And your soul came and chose that. It chose to do that and be born during that time to be a part of that change. Okay. The other generations that we have, you know, is the baby boomers, the Pluto and Leo group, which was 1937 to 1956. And then we went into the Pluto and Virgo generation. Okay. 1956 to 1971. Then the Gen X is the Pluto and Libra. The Pluto and Libra is the generation before us, right? And we actually work a lot hand in hand with them. Many of us get into relationships with Pluto and Libra generations, and you can see the difference of the backdrop, right, of the human soul. The Pluto and Libra gen is 1971 to 1984. They're very much working on issues around relationships and how we relate to ourselves and others. That generation is when all this divorces started to happen, right? Because they've been struggling with how to relate to each other, dynamics, what is right, what is okay, what is not, and also how to relate to themselves and how to really start loving and valuing themselves. This is the end goal, really, of that Pluto, right? To empower the self. Put it in Libra, a Venus ruled sign that has to do with relating and love and beauty and health and all that. That's what their, undertone was, right? Setting up the backdrop also of relationship dynamics and how we partner and form unions with each other in the world as a collective, right? Then you give birth to the Pluto and Scorpio people who are just going to, like, boom, transform anything that's shadow still, anything that's negative, break it down. It's coming down, right? We're going to Phoenix rise. We're going to fire it up again. We're going to go into the subconscious layers, transmute the hell out of this stuff, and then bring it to the Pluto and Sag peep, where born in 1995 to 2008, when they start getting into power and leadership, which many of them are brilliant and already starting to, they're bringing beliefs, Sagittarius, right? Our higher self, our beliefs, our truth. They're going to transform that energy in a plutonic way around all the truth that we hold. So you can see, and then the Pluto and Capricorn generation, 2008 to 2024, all those souls are going, I believe, they're going to rebuild Capricorn, the societal structure, the businesses, the foundation that this whole entire world and our country is planted on, right? And they're going to be rebuilding that. But we have to go through these processes, and as a human being, right? We do that in our little lifetime, our little, let's say, roughly 85 years of life. We do that on a small scale, but to do that as an entire world scale, it does take generations. This is why it's so important to talk about the Pluto, the Mars, the Scorpio, and the 8th house, because that is the energy that is going to shift us and to change our world up. I love this energy so much. I've never felt so passionate about it until I started diving in and digging in and submerging myself into these Scorpio archetypes, this 8th house energy, this plutonic water, and knowing how to use my Mars for good. This is me right now utilizing my Mars. I'm an Aries sun, okay? I'm a progressed Scorpio rising. I am deeply, deeply, deeply connected to this energy with this Mars energy. Overall, this serves your higher purpose for your evolutionary growth, okay? And all the work that you do on yourself is a trickle effect to those around you, which does change the community, which does change society. It helps other people shift and see within themselves what needs to be worked on as well. So if you want to be an agent of change, you work on your own evolutionary growth, whatever that means for you. You study astrology. The first year you start learning astrology, work on your chart alone. Just totally private investigate your own life. Work on your chart obsessively. Get healing techniques, because not every technique works the same for everybody, but the goal here is to transmute your inner being and the karma that you've held on to, and heal that karma and the generational and ancestral trauma that you've been holding on to for so long. Work through that south node in your chart, wherever that is. Funnel it into your north node, okay? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, like, you're always welcome to reach out to me on any of my platforms or book an astrology reading with me and figure out where you can work with this energy specifically for you, because it's so important to understand where this specifically means and where it's resonating for you in your chart, okay? But it's also important to understand that this as a collective, as a whole, as we shift into the Taurus and Scorpio nodes, that this energy energy is going to be deeply affecting many of us on a global scale. In the United States, as I said earlier, the Pluto return, and especially around those ages when we have a Pluto 8th house year or a Pluto transit or Pluto square, things like that. Okay. So I hope I gave you some sense of empowerment and something to look forward to. If you're feeling it, or you're diving into something like this transformation that you will go through at one point in your life or another, or other friends or family members you might see, or your significant other, coworkers, whatever, they might go through it as well. Okay. It's so positive. It really is. It's difficult. It's always hard, but getting the gold is never, it's not worth it unless we put some work into it, right? We don't value it as much unless we go through the hardship that we needed to earn. Okay. So it empowers you. At the end of the day, you are born again, renewed, and you're stronger than before. You are way stronger, more resilient, more powerful, more spiritual, more higher vibed than ever before. Okay. So anyways, thank you guys so much for coming to my channel. Please hit like and subscribe. Empower me. Hit like and subscribe, and I will be back again for more videos. Thanks.